Well, hi everyone. Welcome to the Future of Work Scotland. Donald and I delighted to be hosting you all this evening. Thrilled to be back. Very much looking forward to the session. This is your first time with us. Very warm welcome to you. If you've been with us before, I recognise many of you. Warm welcome back. We have a very simple code of conduct, as most of you have heard before. We just ask you to be respectful for one another. We want to have an awesome experience. So yeah, just respect one another is all we ask. And we'll do the usual sort of community shout outs and a couple of plugs and things at the end. So yeah, all good with that. And I am thrilled this evening for me, morning or afternoon for your good selves, to be welcoming Bob Galen to Future Work Scotland. It's an absolute honour to have Bob here. He's a man who almost needs no introduction. He's been on the circuit for quite a long time. He's a highly experienced Agile coach. We're chatting just off air just there before we start the session. He's a regular on the conference circuit, has been for a long time. I was lucky enough to join Bob's session in Agile 2022 in Nashville. We were joking because he did the session in the same room that I did my workshop early in the day. He had significantly more people than me. In fact, there were so many people at Bob's session, they were turning people away. That's how popular it was, and it was a tremendous session. Bob's the director of Agile Practice, with Energy, various other organisations he looks after and supports with his coaching expertise. He's also the author of 4 books, including this incredible new book, which is his latest one, which is an absolutely brilliant read. I find it hard to put it down. I also listen to it on Audible quite a lot because I find that's really relaxing and it helps me to take in the concepts, and I'm pretty confident it's going to become a classic across the Agile coaching profession. Bob's laughing now. And without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Bob, and I'm really looking forward to all the insights he's going to share this evening and help us to unlock our inner Agile coach.
Thank you for that introduction. Hey, everyone. Good evening or good morning or good afternoon. I'm glad to be here. Let me start sharing my screen. Let me get my screen set up here a little bit. I'm really excited to be able to share this. I've been doing this talk a few times, and I enjoy it a lot. I hope you get a lot out of it, whether you're a starting coach or an experienced coach. My hope for all of you is you have some takeaways from it. So everyone, the premise is everyone is or can be an Agile coach, and I'll explain the thinking behind that premise. I am not trying to turn everyone, so you don't get to declare yourself as an Agile coach just by attending this session. You don't get to put it on LinkedIn or put it on your business card, even if you want to. So it's not that kind of a everyone can be. I'm not going to talk much about myself, although let's see, what's maybe 2 important things up there. I'm a husband, a father, a grandfather. I have 4 wonderful grandchildren. I live in Cary, North Carolina in the US. I collect potato heads. I've been collecting potato heads. If anyone in Europe knows what a potato head is, it's a little toy in the shape of a potato head with pieces that you put on it. I've been doing that for about 25 years for some reason. I have about 200 potato heads of a wide variety. And my favorite potato head is right there. That's Darth Tater. Not Vader, but Tater, just as in tater tot, if you've ever heard of that expression. So enough of that. I want you to, so the agenda, this is a primer on Agile coaching. Consider it like an overview of Agile coaching. We're going to explore something called the Agile Coaching Growth Wheel. And then we're going to talk about coaching mindset. What does that look like? And that's an intangible thing sometimes. It's not that clear, but it's important to sort of play with it, I think. And then we're going to talk about a conversation model, a conversational arc. And so there's really 3 vignettes in this talk. It's the Agile Coaching Growth Wheel, mindset, and then conversation arc. And then we're going to get a chance to practice. Now, everyone don't leave. It's not going to be scary practice. We're not going to put you in Zoom rooms so everyone can wipe their brow and and relax. What we're going to do is we're going to play some coaching, like a game of how to coach in some scenarios in chat. But we're going to get a chance to interact and have some coaching conversation interactions, like how would you attack this scenario with some of the things we've learned. So we'll get a little bit of practice at the end. And I'm always incredibly grateful for the practice. There's a lot of learning there. I learn things every session, so hopefully you do as well. And then we close. So when I say coach, it's a broad definition. One of the mistakes I made when I wrote the book, and it's too late, and I don't beat myself up too much about it, but the title, when I hit code freeze on the book, and a little bit later, I was like, the title has Agile Coach in it, which isn't a bad thing, but I felt like that limits it to only Agile coaches would read this. And the mistake I made upon reflection was, I think Agile coaching competencies or Agile coaching skills or coaching skills can benefit anyone in Agile contexts. Does that resonate with everyone? So for example, let me pick product owners. I wish product owners would study coaching techniques. I really do, because they're interacting with stakeholders and they're interacting with customers, and I think it would make them a better product owner. I wish that leaders, managers would please become better coaches. But I'm not trying to turn you into a coach. What I'm saying is, part of your skill, your improvement, your personal improvement should be coaching skills would really make you a better leader. I'm convinced of that. I actually think leaders need to have that. That should be part of their core competency. Team members could be better team members if they have some coaching skills. And then of course, Scrum Masters, etc. So that's the premise, is I want this, whether you're a coach on title or not, I really don't care for this talk. I want you to dissect tools and techniques and think about applying them in whatever role you have. So I want to start with the venerable Agile Coaching Competency Framework to set a baseline. This is a historical baseline of what is Agile coaching. I think today, I was talking to someone today about, or last night, I was attending a session last night, and we were talking about the world of Agile coaching is still a little messy, if that makes sense to everyone. It's still messy. There's a lot of finger pointing. It's a messy place of what it is. And one of the things we came up with was one of the root problems is there's not a clear definition in the universe as to what Agile coaching is, or people aren't aware of it. Unfortunately, not everyone's aware of. I mean, hiring Agile coaches is one thing. Knowing what they do is something totally different, and then taking advantage of it. The coaching competency framework defined that, but not a lot of people not everyone is aware of it. Not every stakeholder or every customer or every leader in your organization is aware of it. They should be, I think. So it was created in 2010 by Lisa Atkins and Michael Spade as part of their partnership in the Agile Coaching Institute. I'm only going to talk about what I think of as the four primary stances. So teaching, that didn't work out really well. There we go. Teaching, mentoring, facilitating, and professional coaching. I think of them as, I'm going to use the term stance and competency interchangeable, if that's okay with everyone, right? So competency or stance, I somewhat, and I say stance a lot. So it's the stance, think of it as the hat. I'm adopting the hat. I'm coaching as. So Agile coach as teacher, Agile coach as mentor, Agile coach as whatever, ... is the way I want you to be hearing me. So teaching, Agile coach as teacher, is sharing. I think of it as teaching a group, teaching a crowd, a coach in front of a group. It doesn't have to be spatially that way, but the coach teaching, sharing information, maybe talking about Scrum or Kanban or something like that. It's more group-based activity. I think of mentoring as something similar to that, but more one-on-one. Does anyone resonate with the word apprentice? Anyone even know what that is? Apprenticeship? Then there's this notion of apprenticing. When I think of mentoring, I think of apprenticeship. Someone who has more apprenticing with someone else who has less, and showing them what to do. And then guiding them, reacting to them doing it. So let me show you, and then show me how to do it, and I'll give you feedback. So that's my sort of mental model for mentoring. In both cases, there's learning involved. So coach as teacher, coach as mentor. Coach as facilitator, very often group-based. I think as a Scrum Master as coach would be facilitating events, facilitating a retrospective, facilitating all voices, facilitation skills, tools and techniques and tactics to facilitate. How do I get all voices? How do I get everyone to provide feedback? How do we vote? How do we prioritize? Some tools and tactics for that. So coach as facilitator. I think each one of these competencies or stances, I think they change in importance depending on your role. So I think of facilitator as being very strong in a Scrum Master. Does that resonate with anyone? So a Scrum Master, to me, part of that would be they want to be coach or Scrum Master coach as facilitator. That would probably be something they want to lean into on a daily basis. Now, they might not lean into teaching very often, but they might lean into mentoring. So they're changing their stances depending on what their team needs. And then I've saved sort of the best, maybe for last, is professional coaching. The way I'm going to define that is asking good questions. Does that resonate with anyone? Powerful questions, asking questions so that the client, I'm going to use the term client to represent anyone you're coaching. So the client could be a Scrum team, the client could be an individual, the client could be a group of leaders. You're coaching a client, so individual or groups. So in the professional coaching stance, you're asking good questions of your clients so that they can figure things out on their own. You're not telling them what to do. You're exploring things with them. And there's the artfulness of and the situationalness of asking questions. Does that resonate with everyone? Sort of 4 primary stances. Now, one of the things I want you to think about metaphorically is dancing with your clients. Because a mistake I see in a lot of coaches is they stay in one stance too long. In the US, we have this euphemism of if the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. I don't know if anyone's ever heard that. So it's like, so then you apply the hammer to everything. Here, as an effective Agile coach, I think one of the artfulness of it or the maturity that you need to get is the ability to sense from your client what they need, their agenda, and then switch stances in service to your client. So you're not doing the stance because of your comfort zone, right? It's not what I'm comfortable with. That actually doesn't matter so much. It's what does my client need from me, and what stance do they need me to show up in order to serve them and serve their agenda. And I might need to figure that out. Now, professional coaching is a wonderful stance to the beginning because you're asking some questions. I think of it as like figuring out the next steps. So I often, probably 95% of the time, I enter a coaching conversation in professional coaching stance. Does that make sense to folks a little bit? Because it's, again, I'm exploring the landscape, and then I might sense and respond to something else. So now I want to switch gears to another framework. It hasn't replaced the ACCF. I think of it as augmenting it with respect. It's evolved from it with respect to the past. And I know that because of the community that's building it. It's an open source effort. And I have some slides here. The whatisagilecoaching.org is probably a great reference if you want to do a deep dive into the Agile Coaching Growth Wheel. And here's some history behind it. And it's just a reference for you to look at. There's some history and that's energized the evolution of it. Right now, the Scrum Alliance has a community-driven working group that's evolving the Agile Coaching Growth Wheel, or developing it, adding depth to it probably is a better way to say it. But I want to dive into it a little bit, into specific aspects using the Agile Coaching Competency Framework as a baseline. So the first thing that the wheel did that I think was a gap in the Agile Coaching Competency Framework is it talks about, in the middle, the hub of the wheel, the spoke of the wheel, is self-mastery. And I don't think the ACCF, or sometimes I call it the X-Wing model, I don't think the X-Wing model talked about self-mastery enough. It's not that they didn't think it was important, it's just it wasn't amplified. Self-mastery I'll define as Agile coaching to be an effective Agile coach, to be an effective at implementing stances. It's an inside-out job. Does that resonate with anyone? So it's coaching from the inside first. Like, what kind of a coach are you inside before you start coaching outside? Things that matter. For example, what do you have an ethics definition? Do you understand ethics and how it applies to Agile coaching? Are you self-aware? I can't tell you how many Agile coaches. I meet a lot of Agile coaches who, I'm an Agile coach. I have 1.2 hours of experience and I want to do enterprise level Agile coaching. And I'm like, fantastic. That's a wonderful aspiration. You might need a bit more experience before you do that. And they lack self-awareness. They really don't understand the depth and breadth of it. I think, and that's part of, they lack that self-mastery, that looking in the mirror and being honest with yourself and saying, you know what, I need to grow, I need to learn. Self-care is another self-mastery aspect. Whip limits. I see coaches that coach their teams. Any of you ever coach someone and say you have excessive whip? Someone be honest. You said you have too many balls in the air. You're coaching a client and someone, you have excessive whip limit. And then if you look in the mirror and you look at yourself, guess what you're doing? You have 22 teams and you have 2,000 books in your queue. How many people have 2,000 books in your reading queue? I do. No, I'm kidding. Or 200 or 20. You have so much whip. So my point is, you're not walking your talk. Does that matter for a coach? I'd say yes. Right? What are you doing on the inside before you're coaching someone else? It actually, as a client, it matters to me that a coach is walking their talk, that they have humility. I think a good Agile coach is coachable. In fact, before you start coaching others, you should look in the mirror from a self-mastery point of view and say, do I have a coach? Do I have a mentor? Am I coaching and mentoring, and do I have a coach and am I being mentored? It's like, are you walking your talk? So self-mastery, the wheel puts a real strong emphasis on that. And I think it's a really healthy thing. That doesn't mean you have to wait to become perfect on the inside to coach. It just means that you're always working on yourself. Does that resonate with everyone? Learning, continuous learning. You should be, as a coach, a continuous learner, because that's what Agile's about. Running experiments. You should be friendly to run your personal. Are you running personal experiments on yourself? The second thing that the growth wheel did, I need to do a time check. I have a tendency to get too passionate and I talk too much, so I apologize to anyone. So save questions if you have them, and we'll have a chance for Q&A at the end. The other thing that the growth wheel did was it changed the stances a little bit. So I talked about them. So coaching stance is the same as the X-Wing. And what it did then is it took mentoring and teaching and it aggregated them into guiding learning. Does that resonate with anyone? So it put those two together. Facilitating is exactly the same, and professional coaching or coaching is exactly the same. But then what it did is it added two more stances that didn't exist in the X-Wing. Explicitly exist. They sort of implicitly, some people extended it to that. The first one that I like to talk about is advising. And so it's coach as advisor. Coaches, I bring my expertise and consult with you, and I can provide counsel. I can be a sounding board. I can provide you some options. There's a lot of Agile coaches in the universe today that really think providing advice or consulting with the client is wrong. Anyone feel that? Anyone have ever experienced that or observed that in the Agile coaching? You were taught, don't tell people what to do, right? They have to solve their own problems. And I get that. Professional coaching stance says ask good questions. But what if the client doesn't have a clue? What if I call it death by 1,000 questions. Sometimes you're asking 1,000 questions and the client is really struggling. And some coaches would resist. It's like, oh no, I can't provide advice. And the wheel is actually empowering you to sometimes, occasionally, in service to your client's agenda, you may want to provide some prescriptive advice. Does that resonate with anyone? Not too often. Not too often. No. If you do it 100% of the time, that's a mistake. So if you, again, remember the hammer, everyone. You don't want to turn any of these into a hammer. So, but again, it's giving that permission. And I think that's powerful, particularly if you're coaching leaders. In my experience, coaches who are coaching up really need to effectively provide some advice sometimes. So the wheel addresses that and talks about that as a core competency. The other competency it added, which I think connects to self-mastery, is leadership or leading. And this is leading in service of others, this servant leader, and it's role modeling. So think of it as coach as role model. Think of it as coaching from the front. Sometimes in a transformation, the coach might want to lead from the front of the room, not facilitating from the front of the room, but leading from the front of the room. You're the change agent. You might be partnering with a stakeholder, and the two of you are talking about the potential vision and the transformation strategy, and you're doing it together. To me, that would be coach as leader. I'm not suggesting you stay there. I'm not talking about an org chart role, but I'm talking about a mindset. Think of it as role modeling, walking your talk. That's why it really connects. I actually think leading, role modeling is my most powerful stance. Does that make sense to everyone? So let me explain. Give you an example. We're in a meeting. I'm coaching. I'm just sitting in a meeting at a client. I'm an internal coach or an external coach, and it's a meeting, and we're talking. It's a retrospective, and someone I don't know, a junior woman from the back starts providing some ideas in the retrospective, and three gentlemen start rolling their eyes and sort of discounting what she's saying. Does everyone make sense? So what we're doing is we're getting very disrespectful behavior, very gender-based disrespectful behavior. And I, as a coach, just sit there and I sort of look the other way. I notice it, but I do nothing. I acquiesce. Everyone with me? I think what I'm doing there is I'm not taking a leadership role. I'm not modeling the behavior that I want. Now, here's a different role. I would actually call that out as a coach. I would say, hold on a second, everyone. I know I'm just here as an attendee, but I just observed something. And it disturbs me a little bit because it doesn't align with our principles that we talk about every day. We talk about that all voices matter. We talk about deep democracy. We talk about diversity and inclusion. And I just observed a discounting of that. And I just want to point that out to you. And I actually find it abhorrent. But I'm only a coach. I'm just observing it. So I'm just going to hold up the mirror to you. And is that what we want to be doing here? And I might set back. Everyone understand what I'm leading? I'm modeling the behavior that I want. Don't trigger on my example. It was probably a bad example. I just pulled it out of thin air. But my point is, I was in leadership stance. Does that make sense to everyone? Leading by example, modeling the behavior that I want. And I think that can be powerful. I could have done something less confrontational and just said, look, I want to hear from her. You know what? I care about her voice. Please give us more. That's important to hear. I could do it much more subtly. And I'm leading by example. That's what I'm saying. That can be an incredibly powerful, because my actions, I'm coaching by action, not by words. I'm coaching by my own personal behavior. The other competencies in the wheel align very much with the X-Wing model. Now, the other major extension, and then I'm done with the wheel, the other major extension for the Agile Coaching Growth Wheel is one of the things that I think the X-Wing model didn't do is how do you mature as a coach? Giving guidance, light guidance. Well, what does a beginner look like? And what does a moderate beginner look like? What does a practitioner look like? What are those skills? And how do I get better? And the wheel actually has 5 levels. It defined for every competency. How cool is that? For every competency, it gives you, so for example, as a facilitator, it talks about what are some of the skills of a beginner facilitator, and then what does an advanced beginner look like? And then what does a practitioner look like? So it can help me as a coach craft my learning journey. I can craft, as a Scrum Master, I might want to be working on facilitation. I'm not frozen again. I might want to work on facilitation. I might want to work on maybe advising a little bit, guiding learning, mentoring, and it'll help me assess. The wheel has some assessment tools that will help you assess where am I, and then plot a learning journey. And I think that's incredibly effective for a coach. And it's your personal, think of it as your personal learning journey. And the X-Wing really didn't step into that arena when it was created. So again, another nice augmentation. Enough of that. Wheel, did everyone get a feeling for that framework? This notion of dancing, the notion of stances, the notion of serving the client, your client, their agenda, surfacing their agenda, entering in coaching stance, very good strategy, but then switching stances depending on what the client might need from you. How many people have ever heard of Kinevin? Probably a lot of you have heard of Kinevin. This notion of sensing and responding, I really think that notion, I'm not bringing Kinevin to Agile coaching, but what I am saying is this notion of sense and respond. Sense the client's, sense what's going on with the client, and then responding and dancing with the client, dancing to different stances. I think that metaphor can be very healthy for you as a coach, not being stuck, but continuously, not just powerful listening, but listening to, is my coaching being effective, or do I think I need to change stances in service? Sense the emotional field from the client. And you can read their body language. If tears are coming down your client's eyes, tears of frustration because you are asking too many questions, that you may want to sense that and respond with another stance. If you want to survive as a coach, you may want to be able to read that and maybe dance to something else. Sometimes it's powerful to just ask the client, is this stance working for you? Or is there another way I can show up that would better support your agenda? It doesn't have to be a secret. You can actually dialogue with your clients, because again, you're serving the client. All right, coaching mindset. Couple things. This comes from the ICF, or what I think of as the professional coaching mindset. And the ICF is just some principles of do no harm, assume positive intent. I want everyone to tattoo on your wrist whenever you're coaching someone. We get biased or triggered. Anyone get triggered or biased by a client that you're coaching? Come on, everyone, right? Oh, they couldn't spell Agile if it would save their life. They don't know what Agile is, so we get triggered. We want to assume positive intent as much as possible, because what happens when we're triggered, that cascades into the client, and they start mirroring how we're showing up with them. So really being intentional about positive intent can be helpful. Hold their agenda, discover what their agenda is. Have the courage to be patient. Meet them where they are, and focus on outcomes with them. So just some principles to think about. I talked about this. Too often coaches, particularly, it happens with both sides, outside external coaches and internal coaches, but very often if you're an internal coach, one of the challenges is someone is telling you, you have a boss who's telling you to coach teams. Does that resonate with anyone? Right? So you're a coach and it's like, David, go coach that team. Coach that scrum team to be high performance, David, and you have 3 sprints to do that. Right. So that's being prescriptive. So it's very attractive for David. He might not meet that team where they are. He meets them where he wants them or needs them to be. And that could be incredibly ineffective. Yes, I'm not saying ignore that, but meet the team where they are. So try not to coach, but have empathy. Look at the world through your team's eyes. Empathy should be one of your superpowers as a coach. And I'm not talking about superficial empathy. I was a software developer. So my first software job was in 1981. So that makes me a dinosaur, everyone. And I was working on assembler programming in 1981. And so to this day, I like to think of myself, oh, I know what software development is like. I don't have a clue, right? I'm a dinosaur. I haven't written code in probably 15 years. And in fact, forget that. Now, I think I know what it's like to be a software engineer in my clients. I don't accept that. I need to build empathy and look at it through their eyes, right? And in fact, even if I was coding 6 weeks ago, I still would not know what it's like to be an engineer on Team Toby in a new client. The only way I would know what it's like to be in that team is to join that team. So that's where coaching empathy comes in. Don't assume that you know what it's like. And in fact, if I'm coaching 3 teams, it would be nice for me to build empathy to those 3 teams because they're different. Oh, they're in the same company. They're different people. They're different products, potentially. They're different code bases. There's different dynamics. So have the respect, meet them where they are is part of that mindset. Have that, build that empathy. Don't have that bias that, oh, I know what it's like. No, you don't. That's too much hubris. Walk in their shoes is another point I'm trying to make. Everyone with me, I want you to think about walking in the shoes of your clients before you coach them. Try to simulate what it's like. If you're coaching leaders, what pressure are they under? Do you know how many people will coach a leader and coach that leader for their behavior and not realize that the problem is not them, but someone above them? Does that resonate with anyone? It's really not. It's the pressure. So, and the coach will never look up. It's like, come on. I'm not saying the person they're coaching doesn't need coaching and they can't improve. What I'm saying is take a systems view to it. Look at it from a systemic point of view and really walk in their shoes and really understand what's going on. So extending that empathy. How many of you have biases? I want everyone on camera to raise their hand right now. Are you yes, everyone, biases. We need, as coaches, we want to practice dropping our biases. Right? I personally, I'll be vulnerable. I have a bias against leaders. I've been in senior leadership roles, and I don't have a lot of tolerance for leaders who don't have an agile mindset. And guess how many of those are in the world? Quite a few. And I coach quite a few of them, and I can get very impatient. Before I coach them, I have to clean my brain up. I have to clean my biases out to the best of my ability. Otherwise, it's going to color my coaching. It's going to color the effectiveness of my coaching. They're going to feel that bias. No matter how elegantly I speak, it's still going to be there in the emotional field. So dropping your baggage, so being self-aware of your baggage. Again, self-mastery is one of the keys. The other thing, I think this is the final point. Yes, final point is your behavior trumps everything else you do. You are a walking, talking. So I want you to practice tomorrow in a coaching role. Go into your coaching context and don't say a word. So I'm going to prevent you from talking for the entire day, right? So the point is, but you're coaching as a role model. How you show up. Do you show up on time? Is your camera on? Are you typing in? Bob Galen said I couldn't talk, but he didn't say I couldn't type into I couldn't type into chat. So you're chatting. You're appreciating people, or you're not appreciating people. Your behavior speaks volumes for what's going on, and that's what I'm saying. It's don't count on your words, and very often your behavior has to align with your words. Words are words. They're cheap. Behavior is behavior. So remember, behavior trumps everything. So be sharp on your behavior. Be sharp on your eye roll. How many of you eye roll? Everyone, right? Eye roll. I make sighing noises sometimes. Oh, right. Oh my God. Right. Yeah, be sharp. That's coaching. That's setting a tone organizationally. You're shaping the cultures that you're in. Enough of that. Final thing. How am I doing? I'm doing okay on time. Coaching conversation. What does a conversation look like? I like to think of it as an arc. You probably all heard this. I'm just going to give you another metaphor, another arc. I like chess. And so I'm going to talk about opening moves, middle game, and end game. The three parts of a coaching arc. Whenever you have a coaching conversation of whatever sort with a team, with a client, so group, individual, small group, whatever it is, I want you to think of when you get your head around that, I want you to think about it in those three phases. What are my opening moves? What is my middle game? And what is my end game? I want you to think about the stances. How am I going to open? What stance am I going to open with? I'm not talking about pre-planning. I'm just thinking, keeping it lightly touched in your mind to say, you know what, I'm going to follow this arc. So what are some opening moves? Ask permission to coach. Always ask permission. Anyone ever hear that old adage? If you have some feedback for someone, ask them if they're willing to receive the feedback. Anyone? I heard that like 20 or 30 years ago. Someone gave me that gift. And I've never ever given feedback without asking for permission to give feedback. And it's the same thing with coaching. If someone and you have to be willing to accept the no. Does that make sense? Paula, right? So don't ask if you, well, I have it scheduled in my I have it scheduled. You have 15 minutes of coaching, whether you like it or not, and it's on my calendar. So damn it, I'm going to coach you. But would you like to be coached? No, no. Oh, you're going to be. You have to accept the no. So ask, establish goals, establish agenda, not your goals. Whose goals? Someone shout it out. Come off mute. It's whose goals? The
Coaches.
client. The client. It's the client's goal. You can co-create it, but it's their goals. Set the stage. Have some open-ended questions. Coaching stance. Listen to the emotional field. So don't just listen to words. Watch the body language. They said something, but what didn't they say? What didn't they say? Is there missing things that should be there? And you're trying to get direction finding. Very often I'll enter, like I said, in professional coaching stance, but part of my direction finding or sensing and responding is, do I want to continue in coaching stance or do I want to start dancing with this client? What would serve their agenda? Oh, you know what? Maybe there's some mentoring. Maybe there's a mentoring opportunity. Let's switch. I'm going to dance to mentoring for a little while, see how that works. I'll check in with the client. Oh, that didn't work very well. What about advice? Do you need some advice? How about some option exploration? Let's do that. So now we're in the middle game and we're brainstorming options, strategies, narrowing, planning. We might be expanding, clarifying. Powerful listening is all along it, but I really think powerful listening is predominant in the middle game. You're clarifying the conversation. Did I hear you right? Is there anything else going on there that we should explore? Are you sure? That's it? Okay. And we're so everyone notice I might be in advising, but what am I doing? I'm like asking questions. That's okay. Right? I mean, I have an advising mindset, but I'm still asking powerful questions if they're appropriate. So there's no fixed, I'm sensing, I'm dancing with my client. I'm dancing in service to their agenda. And then the end game, closure, ownership of actions. Do we need to do this again? How did we meet your agenda? Do we meet your outcomes? How did I do? How was my dancing? Right? It was what stance did you appreciate? What didn't you appreciate? Get feedback. As a coach, it's not just about the client doing action. Give me some feedback so I can do a better job the next time. And then maybe schedule something else. Everyone get that arc in their mind? Sort of think about that kind of a flow and using it. You don't want to be standing too much in the opening moves. You want to get in. To me, the meat and potatoes is in the middle game. But you want to sort of land. You also want to stick the landing. So questions are important. There's a book called The Coaching Habit. And this is not agile coaching or coaching. It's actually, I think of it as leaders coaching. So the book's target audience is managers or leaders. And it's targeting that premise I talked about earlier of leaders should be good coaches. So he's really targeting, I think, more leadership folks. And so that's a much broader audience. And he talks about, but leader as coach, and he shares 7. One of the problems with powerful questions for me is there's so many possibilities of powerful questions. If you all look in Amazon, there's a book on at least one book that lists powerful questions. I think it has thousands of powerful questions in it. It's a great book, but I freeze sometimes. I'm like, oh my God, there's 10,000 choices. What's the one choice I need to pick now? And I've actually, years ago, I froze for a client and the client is like, Bob, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm trying to go through my question index to see which question to ask you next. And he's like, well, Bob, breathe. So now my client was coaching me to pick questions faster. So I'm offering all of you a very simple set. I actually would recommend that every Agile coach creates like 10 to 20 of their pet questions on index cards and you make them your own. And these are your go-to questions that you practice. Now, this is a starter set for you. So what's on your mind? Beautiful opening move. Everyone with me? Beautiful opening move question. And what else? So drilling down underneath it. You can use that. What's on your mind? And anything else? Really? Tell me more. Okay. What's going on there? What's the real challenge for you here? Another sort of go below the surface question. What's the real challenge? And is there anything else around that challenge? Can you tell me more? What do you want? Wonderful question. What do you want? What outcome do you want? What action do you want? Right? What challenge do you need to overcome? How can I help? This to me is the partnership with the client. Everyone with me? I think an effective coach has to establish to co-create the agenda and co-partner with them. There's a relationship building part to effective coaching. Now there's a danger with partnership. Everyone know what that is? Who owns the outcomes to the coaching? Client or coach? Anyone? Client. Action is always on the client. Does that resonate with everyone? Action is always on the client. So we want to be careful that we don't take over ownership of outcome, of action. But at the same time, I think it's having a little bit of skin in the game, a little bit of co-creation, a little bit of partnership can be effective. We're in this together. So it's a subtle shift. If you're saying yes to this, what are you saying no to? The quintessential whip question, right? Really thinking about value. And then what was most useful to you? End game. What was most useful to you in the coaching? How could I improve? So just an open set of questions. I wanted to give you a few questions to think about. When we're doing the simulations, you may articulate some of these questions as being more helpful in the scenarios. So I want you to be thinking about these in the back, and there's only 7 of them. As part of questions, so I think folks that think about powerful questions, they miss a part. That's 50% of the coaching. Another 50% is powerful listening. If you ask powerful questions, but you don't have powerful listening, I think you're like missing 50% of the value. So we have to do both. We have to actively do both. And it's being attentive, it's probing, it's clarifying, it's paraphrasing, it's establishing metaphors. Co-creating metaphors with the client can be incredibly powerful. And summarization. In their words, not your words, in the words of the client, summarizing. Did I get that right? Is this where we're at? So, everyone, I want to go back and I want to test. I want some folks, I want to hear voices before we start this scenario. Let me check the time. We're doing good on time. The first part was frameworks. Someone give me some learning aspects that you took away from the framework part of the talk. Remember the X-wing, the growth wheel. I want to get 1 or 2 or 3 important things that someone heard. Important takeaways. Advising, giving you permission. It's okay. You are no longer evil if you provide advice. You can occasionally provide advice. Now you need the experience to provide that advice. So don't just I read a book by Bob Galen and Bob said this. So this is what I'm offering to you. Don't do that, right? So that's probably not the kind of advice we're talking about. Anyone else in the framework, something that was compelling? Leading. That leading part, I love that, Manoj. It's something that I'm playing with more and more, but it's how do we do it? And it's not leading as leader. Please don't. It's not role. It's not org chart role. It's not title, but it's the realization that as a coach, you are leading people. People are looking at you as a role model of what good Agile looks like. You with me? Right? Even if you don't open your mouth, you are the living embodiment of good or maybe not so good. It depends on how you want to show up. But
I think, Bob, it's the shift from servant leadership to actually take a transformation lead and make that happen with the leader.
And again, co-create it, but it's almost leading, but maybe off to the side a little bit. Occasionally, it's that leading from the front very lightly, then leading from the back and leading from the sides, if you're with me.
Yeah, that's right.
And knowing, so in leading, there's a dance move there of how are we shifting to the front, to the sides, and to the back. Absolutely. Well, wonderful. All right, let's move on. To mindset, a couple critical takeaways from mindset. Because all of these things I want you to be thinking about when we talk about these scenarios and typing some of them into chat. So mindset, critical parts. Oh, I really landed that well.
Be uncomfortable.
So be uncomfortable. I'll take that. Anyone else? Mindset. Key takeaways.
Having patience.
Patience. I love that.
Self-awareness.
Aline, could you repeat that?
Yeah. Self-awareness is important. Walk the talk.
Aline, it's incredibly important. I'm also going to say something to everyone. It's how we enter the conversation up here matters. Does that matter? There's a notion. There's a term called meta skills that some professional coaching schools talk about. And the meta skill is, what do I put on up here? So let me give you an example. If I put on curiosity, and I put on, so then I'm showing curiosity to my client, very often they will reciprocate the meta skill. Does that make sense to everyone? I'm putting, let's say, curiosity and respect. And so what I'll get in return is they'll mirror that back to me. What if I, those are positive meta skills. What if I show, what would be some negative meta skills? Disrespect, pointy-headed leader, I'm wasting my time, right? But I have a smile on my face, but in my head, I'm like, I need to get a drink, right? I need a scotch right now because this is too painful for any human. So in here, I'm not showing up respectfully. And someone might think, well, the client doesn't know that. And I would argue that the client is going to sense that in the emotional field of what's going on. And they're going to reflect that. And what's dangerous is they're going to reflect that back to you. And you're going to get disrespect back, or they're not going to take you seriously or whatnot. Now, what can we control? I can't control the client, but we can control how we show up. Does that make sense to everyone? Right? We can choose. We can sort of be intentional about how we show up. So that's mindset. That's why self-mastery matters so much. So much of I think the success or failure of coaching conversations is not the skills, but how you are mentally showing up. It matters so much. All right, let's talk about the arc. Any key takeaways to the arc? Things to think about.
Asking permission.
Ask permission, love that. If there's a couple takeaways, please always ask permission. Please. And part of that's accept the no. Now's not a good time. Okay, when is a good time? All right, let's dive in. I'm not going to put you through this pain any longer. All right, let's go into the situation. So here's what we're going to do. I want you all to grab, if it's handy, grab a piece of paper. And I want you to draw an arc on a piece of paper. If you remember this arc, just draw something like this. It's a scribble. And for each scenario, I want you to jot down some ideas about how would you, if you were coaching in this scenario, what would be some things that you would keep in mind? So what stance might you enter with? What stance would I put in opening moves? What powerful questions might I put on? What would be my mindset that I would adopt before I went in? Would I have to release any baggage? All of the things we've talked about, I want you to sprinkle them on that piece of paper for each scenario. And then if something, so it's your game plan. Everyone, sort of a very light-handed game plan for handling that. Of course, you're going to change it when you're coaching, but it gives you a sense for how do I serve the client given this scene? Am I prepared for that? And then I'll make some adjustments as I go. So think of it as a strategy. Think of it as a light strategy document. So, and then I want you to type some of those things into chat and share them with the crowd. So I want to see just some coaching strategy elements pop up in chat. So here's the scenario. And you're all coaches now. Everyone, I don't care what your title is. So I'm now promoting all of you. I'm promoting everyone to an Agile coach just for the next 30 minutes. So here's your scenario. You're an Agile coach, whether you like it or not, who is trying to spearhead an Agile transformation. You continuously try to make the methods versus mindset point, but it's not landing really well. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't across the organization. The COO, the Chief Operating Officer of the organization, who supports the initiative, asks you to help them, 1, explain what Agile is, 2, what it isn't, and 3, what is the value impact proposition? So basically they're trying to learn a little more. What to do, what conversations to have. What is the arc for this one? What are some ideas? Mindset, stances, actions, be ready for this, approaches, dancing. So everyone, that's your scenario. Jot it down, and I want to activate my chat. So let me do that. And feel free to pop some things up into chat. I don't want you to list every action you're going to take. That's on your arc. But some key things to think about. Think of it as coaching strategy and share it. So this is scene 1. All right. And I'll be looking in chat and reacting. So how would you strategize for scene 1? I gave you guys something that I would do. I would probably have to release my baggage. Does that make sense? Remember, I'm triggered by leaders very often. So I would probably, one thing I would want to do before I even went to opening moves, I would want to clean up my head a little bit, right? And make sure I entered. So the meta skill, I'll say I would want to enter this with a meta skill of respect. I would want to enter this with a meta skill of seeking to understand, just to make sure that I was sharp on that. So that's the kind of things I'm looking for in the chat from anyone when you're ready. And we're not going to move in until I see what people are thinking, which is a hanging threat. Vladimir. So everyone applaud Vladimir because he was the first one, right? So exactly, you need a start. So start with helping CEO team to put together, what are their actual jobs? Oh, I love it, Vladimir. So what are the empathy card? You're playing the empathy, the seeking to understand. I love that. That's a nice way to start. Paula, be curious, understand where they're coming from. Absolutely. I'd say from a business perspective, Paula, could you even extend that to personal awareness? Where are they coming from a personal, what are some of their personal challenges? I'd say yes, right? Like relationships. They might spend spend a half of a microsecond building a relationship. Absolutely. Magda, what? Acknowledge that they are asking for help. Magda, I love that. Like, I appreciate you asking for help. Do you know how many people don't ask for help? My God, come over here and give me a hug. I'm just kidding, everyone, right? So take a stance of a teacher. Deep dives with the questions. Yes. Agile is changing to succeed. To not ceremony independent, value impact prop. Absolutely. Love that. So value first. Tom, that might be like a little bit of a mentoring session. Sometimes I think in terms of like shifting to a stance of a little like soapbox moment or something like that. Find out what they hope to achieve. Francesca, their hopes and dreams occasionally. Not what you want to accomplish tomorrow, but what do you might want to accomplish a year from now? What's your vision? Again, remember, this might be your first coaching conversation. So I don't know if you need to dive into solutioning right off the top. Everyone with me? In fact, the first arc might be just getting a feel for the landscape, doing a little bit of relationship building, etc. Anything else? I'll wait a second and see. All of these are good. There's nothing. It's all situational. And you're sensing and responding in the moment. Everyone with me? If someone wants data, you might want to switch. I don't want to do this relationship stuff. Tell me what I need to do. All right. Then maybe we need to go into advising to some degree. We want to talk about value proposition. What's your North Star? Menage. That's a nice open-ended, right? I love that. And see where it goes. Tell me more about that. You see the power? That's a question opening for drilling down to some degree. Okay, everyone, I love that. as a startup for strategy. I want to hear some stances the next time too. Like you could have the stance to enter. You could also have a stance to avoid. Everyone, like this professional coaching might be good, but I don't want to do this. Like, don't start advising would be a reaction. Stay away from advising in the first one. Oh, my hand is going up. So I have to lower my hand. So I'm getting auto detect of my hand waving. That happens to me in Zoom sometimes. It's annoying me, and I don't know how to turn it off. All right, everyone, let's go to another scenario. Everyone, let me clean up. Let me go to scene 2. I really appreciate everyone's interaction so far, and I want even more the next time. And what to do, what to avoid. So patterns, anti-patterns, any of those things. How to close. You might even look at, you know what, I don't know how to start, but we need to close the arc this way, or I would like to close the arc this way. So here's the next scenario. I think it's different. So swooping. So let me paint the picture. You are a Scrum Master coach. I didn't demote you. Please, no one get offended. All right. So you're a Scrum Master / coach. And I have noticed a strong pattern where team managers are swooping into their respective teams. I call it swooping. Some people call it swoop and poop sometimes. So swooping in to the respective teams. Each time the team encounters a critical problem, the managers are swooping in to solve. They're not bad leaders. They're just trying to help. They keep taking the problem solving and accountability from the team, and you can see the morale, ownership, empowerment waning across the teams. So they're taking little bits of their souls away with them. There is one particular manager, we'll call them Bob, with respect, please, but we'll call him Bob, very senior experience, a dinosaur, if you will, who simply isn't responding to your coaching. So this is the third conversation you've had with Bob. Everyone with me? So you've had 2 conversations, really hasn't changed much. And there's more pain, there's a little bit more soul sucking coming out from the teams. So I don't know what that means. What to do, what conversations to have. So everyone draw another arc, and I want to see some strategy ideas, what to do, what not to do, how to enter, middle game, end game. Stances, mindset, powerful questions. What does it look like? Francesca. Find who Bob does listen to and coach that. Francesca, where's Francesca? I can't see Francesca. I don't. Francesca, just high five, just whatever. There, take that, and then a hand is going to pop up. I love that. So don't immediately coach Bob. You might coach Bob, or you might coach around Bob. I love that. Assume positive intent. Yes, interjet. I might remind myself that, right? And so that I enter it with the right mindset. Anything else, please, everyone? What are some key elements to strategize? Francesca, I love that. I love the insight into that. You stole my thunder. I often talk about some coaches focus on coaching what they think is the problem when they should really reevaluate the system. And that might lead to coaching other individuals, if that makes sense. So I thought that was really powerful. What's working good for you? I've met Bob. so yeah, so have I, in more ways than one. Help the team to push back on the swooping. Mike, maybe there's a coaching opportunity towards the team. Everyone with me? Actually, that could be a very effective strategy. It could be both. It could be both. Don't tell Bob. Ask for advice about swooping from the swooper. Katarzyna, I love that. So it's sort of a Zen-like. It's sort of a reciprocal coaching strategy. Try and find some empathy. I love that. So I interject. That's probably where I would go as well. Is I might look at the system and say Bob might be at the mercy of his system. So I would be really trying to understand that, and not just what I think, but really putting on my observational capabilities. I might even coach or interview, if you will, several of the folks in Bob's leadership chain to talk about what's going on there, just even an introductory. So empathy, align folks to focusing on the problems to solve. I love that. On reaching, so being goal focused, try walking, David Orsi, yes, that's part of that empathy. And very often we can trigger on the problem and lose sight of the empathy, the connection to Bob and what's going on there. For a day, Aline, I can't tell you, in my coaching of Agile coaching and observation of coaches and the observation, many of us lack sufficient empathy. And if we took that step, it would make us better coaches, meaning we would have more effective outcomes. In the team, don't solve for them. Role model behaviors with the team. That I'd interject, this could be a role model the behavior coaching effort. So the stance could be that. I love some of these answers. Okay. Or these reactions. Everyone remember, none of these are right or wrong. I want you all grabbing the chat. These are all options. These are all viable from my point of view. It's all set. And then each one could lead to another pivot, another sense and respond. But again, we want to keep in mind, what is that root challenge, and what are we trying? In the Scrum Master in this case is trying to effectively create a better environment for the team to be more effective, for empowerment. So in the back of our minds, we want to be keeping that in our mind, but we want to be collaborating with the system, with Bob and around Bob. All right. What would be, David, I love your talk. Everyone, what would be it's an advisor, and you have an advisory, you have a relationship with Bob. So in fact, I don't want you to get stuck in stances. Let's say you have 30 seconds. I want to just see a couple responses in chat. You don't have a lot of time. The team is broken. Bob is ripping out their souls. You've taken Bob to a bar. You've given him a few drinks. So you have lubricated Bob for a succinct coaching conversation. And I want you to put on your speak truth to power and your straight shooting, no filtering. What should you tell Bob? Forget the stances. What is that straight shooting right between the eyes with respect? But damn it, we have to fix this. What are you going to say? Well, Magda, you got, I can't, oh my God, I will, you have touched my heart, Magda. That is absolutely a straight shooting, right? God, did you get Bob's attention, everyone? Right? Yes, Manoj. Slightly more palatable. Yes. But everyone understand what I'm saying? At some point, we may want to cut through the stance gymnastics, and we have to build trust and build relationship, but really have that, Bob, are you aware of the behavior? You're ripping the soul out of the teams. Are you aware of that? And it's an incredible problem that's going on. And I want to partner with you to solve that. But the team, I don't see the team surviving very much longer. It's cutting through all of that and then seeing how Bob responds. And at some point, that may be the coaching conversation to have. Everyone with me? You need to set the stage for that. And I don't know if castration probably should be part of that conversation. But at the same time, the clarity of that conversation, that speaking truth, occasionally as a coach, we may need to bring that to bear. Thank you for running. I've never done that experiment in this session before, and I experimented, and I love the way you all reacted. So let's go to another scenario. Scene 3. Is everyone up for another scene? Are you up for another one? Okay, let's do scene 3. Okay, I forget what this one is too. Oh, okay. There is an I in team. So you're the scrum master of a team. Again, we're all coaches. So you're a scrum master of a team who's recently adopted Scrum. One team member, the team lead, is really struggling to work within the dynamics. We'll call them Bob again. So this is Bob again. They're really struggling to work within the dynamics of a cross-functional team. Bob is a SME, subject matter expert. Bob's been with the company for 25 years. Bob's written most of the legacy code. Bob knows every nook and cranny. A very young team around Bob. And Bob is doing most of the work. One, because he doesn't play well with others. Everyone get a picture for Bob? But he's got a heart of gold. He wears a hat. He wears a baseball hat. He has a white beard, and he has a heart of gold. So his intentions are pure. He's just not working well with the team because they know everything. They are negative, belligerent in meetings. Well, maybe he's not self-aware. He doesn't like to collaborate with others, and he's increasingly disruptive, but in a positive way. Another team member has pulled you aside as the Scrum Master with tears in their eyes, literally begging you to do something because it's becoming intolerable to work as part of this team. What to do? You've had a light coaching conversation with Bob, trying to establish relationships. So you've had one exploratory coaching conversation with Bob. This is the follow-up coaching conversation. So what does this scene look like? Same thing, arc, strategies, mindset, stances. How are you going to approach it? I'm really curious about what you come up. I want to remind everyone, think about the system. Don't just think about coaching Bob. Yes, but are there system components around Bob that you may want to coach as well? Aline, I like what you said, 5 deep breaths first. No, in all seriousness, because I've coached multiple Bobs and I need to make sure I don't treat all Bobs the same because I have scar tissue related to coaching similar Bobs. I have to meet each one of them as the individual that they are. So absolutely right. It's clean yourself up from any triggers and be careful of triggers during your coaching. Where your team is, Bob, and where do you want them to be? Vladimir, I love that, right? Trying to pull Bob into looking at a team view. It's your team. What do you envision? What do you dream? How do you see the team unfolding? That might be an interesting conversation. See with David. Try to understand what I love what motivates Bob and use that to structure. If we didn't have that in the first conversation, David, even if we did, I'd want to do it, either do it because we missed it or do a deeper dive into that. That would be more of one of these deeper dives. What motivates Bob, and go a little bit deeper. And what else? And what else? Remember those 7 questions? And is there anything else that really gets your blood flowing? Because I'd want to go deep on that. What's not motivating Bob? So the pattern and the anti-pattern. I love that, Seth. Absolutely. Paula, drop your bag. Think where Bob's coming from. What's his, you know what, Paula, is super empathy in this case, from my point of view. Like Bob has built this company. Let's say this company, when Bob was hired, he was employee number 3. It's now, the company's gotten to 3,000. Can you imagine what it's like to be Bob? I've worked incredibly hard for 25 years. And these young whippersnapper agilists are coming in here and everything's agile. And no one even asked me about it. They're just injecting. I feel like they're injecting agile into my DNA. So think about that from an empathy point of view. Absolutely. It can be incredibly rude to handle Bob that way. David, how do you, let's see, I'm trying to catch up with some of these. You guys are great. I hope everyone is reading the chat with me. This is not just Bob's commentary, like you can react to something. Bob, how do you think you are being perceived? Ooh, David. I mean, what is something Bob would like to try out, but it never, I love the experiment. Do you all realize how powerful the experiment word is in coaching, right? I mean, I think we need to lean into experimentation. I'm not trying to change you permanently. Can we run an experiment? Can we run a private experiment? Can we run a personal experiment? Can we do it for just a sprint? Can we do it for a week? That can be incredibly powerful to be part of that discussion. Bob helps to create. Ian, I love that. Stances to enter, stances to avoid, anyone. Prime stances, stances to avoid, any stance reactions. I got a lot of mindset stuff. I love it. Some questions coming in. I would probably not activate leadership stance. I think I'm still exploring with Bob. So I don't want to become what? I probably don't want to shift into advisory. Like advisory can be heavy-handed. It can be prescriptive. I probably, for this conversation, want to be doing what? Maybe some mentoring and probably professional coaching. Does that resonate with everyone? Probably really, stay in those stances unless a real opportunity presents itself to go elsewhere. Want to be sharp on my self-mastery. I might want to model something. So I'm not asking Bob, but I might model something. I don't know what it is. All right. Vladimir, ask Bob's manager to send him to a Bob Galen workshop and have him read the video. I'm just kidding. And so I think, Vladimir, the important point is, I think I might go to, my first step might be a coaching conversation with Bob's manager, and talk to them about their awareness of Bob's behavior, their empathy with Bob. How are they coaching Bob? What are they directing Bob? And I would be looking to become a partner with them to coach Bob forward in Agile team performance. Does that make sense, Vladimir? Right? And I would be reacting to my Bob coaching based on what was occurring at that leadership level. Now, I don't know when I would do that. So remember, I said there was a first coaching conversation, but very early on, I'd be trying to look at the system around Bob and to try to not judge it, but to better understand it. And I would also be looking for partnering. Because I think it depends on my coaching role, but I think in order to really, influence Bob, I may need to create that strong partnership with the leader, with Bob's direct manager. So I'd be thinking about that. Let's see, how to avoid that having, I'm looking for other things. How to avoid having that talk with Bob's manager is perceived as an escalation. Aline, I think I would be actually coaching them. And what I might do is talk to them about my observations of the entire team, right? I'm coaching the team and this is what I'm seeing from a general team perspective. If I wouldn't just be talking about Bob, I would be talking about maybe the entire team dynamics. And I'd be leaning heavily into, let me partner with you to create this high performance team, right? Or how do we partner to empower this team to become high performance, whatever that means. So I would be very careful about not allowing it to perceive that I'm just escalating Bob's behavior, if that makes sense, to start with. I'd also be looking for them to coach Bob, right? Everyone with me. So it's not just the coach's job to coach Bob. The last time I checked, the leader should be coaching Bob as well. Everyone buy that, right? I mean, in one-on-ones and things like that, I wouldn't want to be allowing the leader to put the entire burden on performance management onto me as a coach. I'd want to be sharing it with them. We have skin in the game together. All right, so far so good. All right, I think I have one more. Let me go. I might be frustrated having been relied on. I love this. Do we have time? Do we have time for one more? Let me check the time. No, we're going to stop here, everyone. I want to give you some space. So there's only one more scenario, I think, in this deck. Yeah, there's only one more. It's a team member to team member coach. So the scenario is, looking at it from a team member to team member, and what would that coaching conversation dynamic would be? I want team members to think about it. So with that, I'm done. I want to stick a fork in it and entertain some some questions if there are any. So I want to thank you. I want to aspire all of you not to become coaches, but to be better with your coaching skills, no matter what your role is, and to become well-rounded. Do not become the hammer. Everyone remember that. I will not become a hammer. Therefore, everything looks like a nail. We need some nimbleness over time in order to dance around the wheel. You need that nimbleness. Maybe not in the beginning, but grow yourself to be that. And with that, I am going to stop sharing and say thank you, everyone. Any questions?
Thanks, Bob. We've got about a little over 5 minutes, so we can definitely take a few questions. I didn't see anything in the chat, folks. I'd encourage you to take advantage of the fact we've got Bob here for 10 minutes. So ask your questions, please. Stick up your hand, we'll lead you in or something.
Vladimir, practice. That's one of the things. Practice. Absolutely. I was trying to sort of model some practice here in chat. Imagine you did this back with your coaching colleagues. Imagine if you took real world scenarios, took the names off, please call them Bob, and ran some scenarios with options.
So Magda's got that. Magda, you got a question for us? Or for Bob?
For Bob, if that's okay, or should I write it down?
No, go for it. Go for it.
Go
please.
ahead, go for it. I like voices, Magda. Go ahead.
Okay, so one of the things that you were talking about is the self-awareness and kind of recognizing where you are in your sort of coaching abilities. I'm very new, but you know, I can still see the function, you know, when I'm surrounded by it, but I don't feel like I'm fully capable or just right there to be coaching people. So how to kind of overcome this, how to become, I don't know, a better coach, or I don't know, empower myself to then be able to coach others.
So I think one is be aware of this notion of imposter syndrome, and I'm not saying you have it or to what degree, but we're all imposters. So be self-aware that we all have imposter syndrome, and just navigate that. The second thing I would say is maybe get a coach, Magda, or coaches inside. I don't know what your company dynamics or your your geography dynamics, but if there's coaching groups or agile groups in your area, if there's other coaches in your company, but pair coaching, if you can finesse it, is a wonderful way to get feedback. So self-aware. How do you gain self-awareness? You need feedback. You need feedback from peers. You need feedback from coaches. You need to establish a relationship so people feel safe to give you feedback, and then you can grow. And remember that point I said, are you coachable? And so I would say, think about finding a mentor, finding a coach or coaches, finding opportunities to practice in the wild with real clients and in simulations in the beginning. And give yourself grace. Realize that it takes time, but get that feedback. So, and be relentless in getting feedback and open to it.
Thank you.
Everyone, I didn't say it in this thing, but if you're not pair coach, please, one of the things I do, if I can ever do it, is pair coach. It doesn't always unfold that way, but it's literally pair programming, pair coaching. And one of the benefits of pair coaching is I learn from my pair and I get feedback from my pair. I learn from just observing, no matter how experienced or inexperienced they are. I'm learning. And in these practice sessions, hopefully you saw some learning look at the feedback. You learn just looking at some of the responses that were coming from other people. Anything else?
Questions? Time for another one. Maybe squeezing a second one even. Anything? Don't be shy, folks. Pick Bob's brains while you can. He might be off the hook. God, there we go. I don't see any other hands.
So Interjit said something. It might be a question
in the chat.
Yeah, I'm looking in the chat to decide.
Coach is crucial, advice for scenarios where.
So everyone, I don't know if I'm understanding Interjets, but it's a final point. Let's land on this. What I've learned is someone has to want to be coached. So asking permission does it a disservice. In 25 years of coaching, let's say coaching agile teams or interacting in agile teams, I've not once ever converted someone to be agile. I know you all are disappointed in me, but I've never once flipped a bit in someone's brain with my illustrious coaching and move them from waterfall to agile. It just doesn't work that way. Folks have to change themselves. I can't change people. They have to change themselves. So the more that you need to be invited to coach. There's a lot of prescriptive coaching. Go coach this team. I know you may be in an environment where that's your job, but that's going to be ineffective. The more you can turn that push into an invitation and be patient with folks and co-create things, the more effective the coaching is going to be. I know it's challenging, but we can't change people. They have to decide to change themselves. They have to invite you in as a coach. That opens the door to your effectiveness. Now, you may try chocolates, beer, whiskey, you may gifts, monetary, whatever it takes to get that invitation, but you need the invitation. And that will open the door to success. And the more you push, you may get a little bit of success, but you're also going to get tremendous resistance. I would resist you if you're trying to make me do something that I don't want to do. So I'll leave you with that point.
I think that's a great point to end on there, I think. Yeah, because you said that actually in your workshop last year.
Yeah.
2022. You made that point in a couple of points. We don't.
But my empathy is a lot of
anyone, do we?
Yeah, but a lot of people are in jobs where that's the way their jobs are framed. Yeah. I want, you have 2 weeks I get it, but how can you flip that in some way to make it even partially invited will make it more effective. So
just to move the dial, really. Yeah, no, great stuff. Got a few minutes left. Fantastic. I think we're going to start to wrap up there. As ever, just thanks, Bob, for a fantastic session. Thank you for joining us. Absolute honour to host you. Great listening to your insights. Took a lot away from it myself, scribbled a few notes, and as I said at the outset, absolutely love your book and would encourage everybody here to pick up a copy if they get the opportunity, or borrow somebody else's, or as I do, listen to the audio book, because you'll get a lot of value from all the ideas are in there. And as Bob said throughout today, and as many of us know in our day-to-day work, you have to keep practicing this stuff. You have to keep at it. It's all about deliberate practice. We don't learn overnight, and we do these things, we learn a lot about ourselves along the way. So I think that's really, really important. So absolutely honoured, sir. Thank you again. And I hope I'll see you around somewhere in person again, as I did last year.
Absolutely. Everyone be safe. Take good care. It was nice. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. And just the usual couple of shout outs, etc. So one of the things I just wanted to quickly mention before I talk about some of the things we've got coming up at Future Work Scotland is Agile 2023. So I don't know if everybody knows, but this year it's in Orlando, but there's also going to be a Scotland hub. So last year when we were out there, we talked about some of that. So Scott and I, some of you know Scott and I helped to facilitate a retrospective. And one of the things we talked about quite a lot was how do we all collaborate together to start to reduce the carbon footprint of these large global companies. I'm going to a couple of others this year. It's something we should all be leaning into for lots of obvious reasons. So the Agile Alliance and the board have responded to that type of thinking and ideas, and have agreed to host Scotland-based hubs. So this year, there are going to be events in Edinburgh as part of Agile 2023, which is very, very cool. And furthermore to that, Lisa Atkins is coming over to do a keynote. So how cool is that, right? I've shared the link, take a look. I think there's only about 200 spots available. So get in if you can, maybe get your employer to fund or whatever you can. But if you want to take advantage of that, please do. I'm sure I'll be kicking about, doing whatever. McDonald will be there. I think it's an incredible opportunity for those of us who are based in Scotland and in the Central Belt. So if that's something you're interested in, take a look, and you can get yourself along there. I would thoroughly encourage it. For ourselves at Future Work Scotland, we've got a number of really cool sessions coming up. We've got a double header for you in May. So alongside the great session we've had with Bob today, we've got Peter Stevens, who's the co-founder of the Personal Agility System, joining us for a session in early May. So he'll be talking about reinventing agility. And then at the end of the month, we've sneaked in a bonus session for you with our good friend Erin Randall, who's got another talk, a new talk. She's a fairly regular speaker here. She's been here a number of times. She reached out to Donald and I was quite keen by a new talk, which is all about coaching supervision. So building quite nicely some of the stuff that we've talked about today, and looking at it from that perspective of how coaches may also be coached before. she's got a lot of great ideas to share there as part of that toolbox. I've also got my good friend Chris Stone coming to join us in June. He'll be talking about how you do continuous improvement at scale. Those of you who know, Chris will know he's really into retrospectives, and he does a whole bunch of really good stuff in that space. And he's also sort of working on a book at the moment as well. So looking forward to that getting released, but he'll be joining us in June. And we've got a couple of other ones that are not quite live yet, but some really, really good stuff in the pipeline. So look out for all of that. And if any of that's of interest to you, please do sign up and grab your spot before they all disappear. I think that's all I've got. If anybody else has got anything else they want to quickly pick the hand up and announce or share or shout about, let us know. If not, I'll bring it to a close there. Thank you all for joining. I hope you got a lot of value out of that. We'll get the recording out in the next couple of days. And yeah, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever you have to be. And we hope to see you again soon. Take care, folks. Stay safe. Thanks again, Bob.
Thank you all. Cheers.
Thank
Thank you.
Bye.